Nabukera shouts out in agony. It is a scream for help. Nabukera is being raptured as 3 men force themselves on her, one after the other. There is no one to rescue her. It is a typical case of defilement. For the 10-year-old Nabukera, all hopes to bear her own children in future now hang in balance. She had been brought to this home as a housemaid, taking care of 4 men who allegedly turned her into an occasional sex toy with hardly any consideration of the damage they have forever caused her.
Kanibali basajja bakulu ng'omanyi agaana agali awo ewaka. Bazadde baabwe bali eyo bweru kugaliwo gokka kale nga ngambe tebagakyetwala ng'onaajja mu kisenge ky'oli n'afuluma kangu nnaku bakozesa abantu ng'aba. Ekitegeera bana ate nga bakulu baali bakulu ddala.
Although she is 30 years old now, Nabukera remembers the incident vividly. She prefers to conceal her face as she narrates how the damage caused her then occasionally brings back sharp pains in her pelvic muscles. She later left the home out of frustration, and by the age of 14, Nabukera was introduced to commercial sex trade as an alternative to housekeeping. She also informs us that the new name for her type of trade is self-employed, loosely translated as nekolera jange in one of the local dialects.
Kati bankozesa kale ne bannyonoona. Kati mu kunnyonoona natuuka okuba nga ntuuse emyaka egiwo kale ng'omuntu yenna oba omuwala oba omukyala gy'asobola kufunyamu omusajja nga sobola kufuna ki olw'empisa gye bampisaamu. Ekitegeera nensalawo ne neegatta ku kibinja ekikola ekiro ne ntandika okuba nga nnyingira mu bwanneeko.
But Nabukera is one of the hundreds of children and women who fall victim to sexual gender-based violence annually. The 2013 Crime, Traffic and Road Safety Report from Uganda Police indicates that cases of defilement were over 9,000 in total. This is a sharp increase from the over 8,000 cases in the year 2012. In 2011, cases of defilement were over 7,000. By implication, the country records an increase of about 1,000 cases of defilement annually. For all these years, defilement has remained the second highest committed crime, with most cases reported in the eastern part of Uganda, particularly the districts of Iganga, Mbale and Kamuli.
The biggest challenge, one, is poverty among the communities. So they end up getting compromised, especially in areas of defilement. So when a child is defiled and a parent is approached with some little inducements, they end up compromising.
A visit to Kamuli district, one of the highly prone areas, reveals an increasing number of cases of defilement. Statistics at the police station in Kamuli show that in 2011, this station recorded a total of 400 cases of defilement, a number that shot to 466 in 2012.
We went to police and we noted that on average, Kamuli receives a total number of defilement cases between 45 and 50 a month. That is really alarming.
I must say that Busoga region really has a very high case load of defilement, and really the government needs to rise up and do something about issues of sexual abuse amongst the children.
Before, these cases were not reported, but because people have been sensitized, there is a lot of intervention, there is structures in place. People are now in position to report directly to police.
Many of the school-going children in Kamuli district trek long distances to and from school daily, exposing them to the risk of sexual abuse along the way. Others, like this little girl who has been brought to the police station for disciplinary action, end up loitering on the streets of Kamuli town as opposed to going to school.
Enda yeningi mu byalo bweba eningi abantu bali kujinwanga bakola ebintu ebitakola ki ebitasaana
buti waabanga olwisi ali kuyiranga bano abaana abato abaire essaawa 7 yayira mu ngira mulala olwisi abasaada abanga olwisi nga aidinga omwana oyo akola ki ayira mu ngira omwo yenka yabanga amukuumira owantu owanigirivu owazira ki bantu
ama yanko bati mbu oyo munango omusaada yena anumuka
oyinza osingana omuzadde nga oluusi balina engeri gye bakuuta omwana we olw'okuba ye oluusi osanga oluusi oba anywa ku mwenge n'atatwala buvunaanyizibwa oluusi babikolera eyo ku mabbali ne babeera nga babikolera eyo nga tebigenze mu nsonga z'abali ab'obuyinza.
Before a case of any form of sexual violence can be punished, enough evidence must be collected to bring the victims to book. Joshua Mulwanyi is the Kamuli Area Scenes of Crime officer whose work involves visiting the place where an alleged crime has been committed as soon as possible. He shows off some of the gadgets he uses in fulfilling this duty, but admits that delays in getting the crime report have escalated cases of sexual violence.
Because like in this scientific part of it, it requires a lot of facilitation, movements, going to Kampala, bring back. At times, like we take samples which last for over 2 years, hence making our work difficult.
Kamuli district, with a population of over 700,000 as per the 2012 population records, and also with the highest number of cases of sexual gender-based violence, does not have an analytical laboratory. Samples from the scenes of crime have to be transported to Kampala, a journey of over 100 kilometers, for verification.
Cases take long because of lack of logistics, manpower even in court, because judges, are not available. Here we don't have, our court here does not handle those aggravated defilement cases. They have to go to Jinja.
Because of the nature of criminal prosecution and the nature of our court system, cases really delay. And when cases delay, and if this defilement is at 15, and the case has to take the next 3 years, and in the next 3 years this girl has found another man and has got married, she wouldn't be one to be identified with this particular case of defilement.
It is against this background that Plan Uganda, a civil society organization working in the country, has tried to raise awareness on sexual gender-based violence and is beginning to register results.
You might have read on media why amid his plan's presence in Kamuli, there are a lot of cases reported on defilement, on child abuse. It's only because the masses are getting aware. Very many people are now getting aware. And part of the training of the child protection committees has to do with the referral network. They now know where to report a case.
The child protection that our plan is implementing is basically community-based, where we have structures that we've formed and also equip them with the capacity to be able to identify, follow up, refer, and also handle some of the child protection concerns that are happening in the communities.
The Uganda Women Parliamentary Association, UWOPA, which brings together 135 women members of parliament, is taking the issue of sexual gender-based violence seriously.
By and large, I do think that there has been a breakdown in society norms and values, where, for example, we see father raping daughters. This has increased. Defilement, incest has increased. Defilement by aggravated defilement, which is defilement of underage children, has increased. Other sexual offenses are on the rise.
Most of the defilement cases received may be due to the negligence of parents. Then most of them are actually incest cases where parents, male fathers, are left with the children and they defile them. something like that, which is really worrying. Even the media is doing a very, very special part in trying to air out these cases.
This association is now advocating for reforms in the current law to cater for the many forms that sexual gender-based violence has now adopted. These legislators are calling for the amendment of the Penal Code to create the offense of aggravated rape, focusing on those who commit rape and are infected with HIV or any other sexually transmitted disease, those who are serial offenders, those who rape people with disabilities, gang rape, or those who commit this offense in the presence of a child.
In this bill, currently, there are loopholes in the current law. That is why we are proposing this amendment. For example, currently, the definition of rape is only a penetration. Penetration is not necessarily that a man will penetrate a woman or a girl. We have seen scenario where people all have used gadgets to rape a woman. People have used in some scenario, they have used sticks, they have used bottles to sexually abuse.
Sadia was sexually abused by a stepmom. A stepmom who in retaliation picked a stick and inserted onto Sadia's private part, claiming that Sadia's dad had left her in the cold for close to a month and is just there enjoying.
We want to introduce a new sub-clause to define aggravated rape. That is when, for example, you have gang raped, that becomes aggravated. When the rape leads to injury, unbearable injury, or psychological injury to the victim, that becomes aggravated. When you've raped a minor, that becomes aggravated rape. When you have used substance to induce a person before raping, therefore making sure that the person cannot actually know what is happening to her.
According to the proposed amendments, such persons are liable on conviction to life imprisonment. UWAPA also wants a law on child prostitution to punish anybody who, for monetary consideration, knowingly permits a child to participate in any form of sexual act or in any obscene exhibition.
Since time immemorial, it has been much more of the girl child who has been suffering lots of sexual abuse, although nowadays the trend is also incorporating or usurping the boy child alongside. But largely speaking, those who are violated most are the girls. And the girls who are below the age of 14, I should say, the basic reason is that they are defenseless. They are little, they are children.
They equally want the inclusion of sexual offenses by persons in positions of trust and persons in positions of authority who take advantage of these positions to have sexual intercourse or any sexual act with the victims. The proposed amendments provide for imprisonment of not less than 10 years for this category of offenders. As the different authorities and stakeholders continue to lay strategies on curbing sexual gender-based violence, one thing for sure is that it will take more than words to completely wipe it out. Many of them admit that it will be a combination of tough laws as proposed in the Penal Code Amendment Act to cater for aggravated rape, child prostitution, sexual offenses by persons in positions of trust and persons in positions of authority, and concerted efforts at all levels, starting with the family unit, to protect the country's children, mothers and fathers from the excesses of sexual gender-based violence.
Nabo abaana abagala babatwale nga abaana ab'obulenzi kuba bona abaana mu maka. So bademe abaana abazadde bagaana okutunuulira abaana saidi emu. Kwegamba abaana babeere kyenkanyi.
Baleete emisomo mu byalo basomeseeku ku abazaire era n'abantu abo abali kugemanga abaana abato abo babateere ku irala amaanyi.
You'll find like the proof, the way it is all conducted in the courts of law, you know, the open court thing, it is intimidating to someone. Given the fact that there is social stigma, or there is a way that sex is looked at in the African context, it becomes so hard for these young girls to actually stand in court and testify what happened to them.
We are also going to introduce a sub-clause which will deal with issue of hearing, the hearing of the case to be in camera or in closed door. Currently, there is no law that permits hearing of a sexual offences case in closed door. So you have to go through an open court, just like any other person. And yet you have to narrate the ordeal, how it happened, how the penetration took place. And you know, when a defense lawyer is examining you, there is no mercy.
Silence remains the biggest enemy to any form of sexual gender-based violence. With increased awareness, communities and victims are encouraged to break the silence and speak out against the vice, irrespective of who the perpetrators may be.
So we want to build a community supportive environment. This can only be done through sensitization. We have 112 districts. We are very lucky as a WOPA that our strength is that each of the 112 districts has a woman member of parliament. So what we are doing is we are developing a simplified version of sensitization material that each woman MP will be appearing on radio to sensitize the people in that district. First of all, where to report, where to go for evidence to be collected, how to preserve evidence, the support structure that can help you to report the cases and not be victimized.
So really there is need for the government to really take action. And the time is now, or else I don't know what kind of future we are building for our children, what kind of people they will become, because it's well known that he who is hurt during their childhood is much more prone to also meting out the hurt against others, simply because they feel it's what they've gone through. Why not? They look at it like, it's okay anyway, since I underwent it, I can also do it to others.